What's up? Thank you for checking out the Hospitality Strategy Lab. I'm here with Shampaigne Graves. Shampaigne is a women's marketing expert, so she knows how to communicate with women. And the purpose of the show is to bring in outside experts because what got us here won't get us there. And uh, and so I wanted to talk to Shampaigne about her WCR4 framework and how she helps businesses identify and communicate with women more effectively. Shampaigne, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'm so happy to be here.
So tell me about your business.
Yeah. So just like you said, I focus on women, their consumer behavior, and with my WCR4 framework, that is stands for Women's Consumer Research Method, and it is a four-part method in which I am covering emotional behaviors, gender socialization, intersecting demographics, as well as legacy consumerism, which is something that I really, really work on with corporations because a lot of people don't know that women are birthing the next generation of consumers and they are influencing their buying behavior from yay high.
How would you characterize how people make decisions, just general? And how is that different from men versus women?
Yeah, so one of the things that I talk about, like an unknown phenomena, is called purchase panic. And so basically, it just talks about women and how our sales cycle is just long. It's just a long sales cycle. But the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is that when a woman becomes someone that is an evangelist or she becomes a customer, she naturally becomes an evangelist. She's naturally bringing along other customers. So it may take a long time to win her over, but when she's won over, she is someone who is going to be out there evangelizing for you, bringing new people into the fold and making them aware of the brand. And so when it comes to women, I just think that we are socialized to think harder, to question ourselves a little bit more. And with the phenomena of purchase panic, it's not just the buyer's remorse aspect of it, but it's all of the decision making and the justification for the purchase that happens beforehand as well.
What elements would you say are the most relevant in the decision process?
I think the elements that are the most relevant are obviously price and convenience. However, what I'm seeing now in the marketplace is that women are becoming more value driven and that there is a certain threshold where they're willing to spend more money. They're willing to wait a little bit longer, especially when we're talking about e-commerce, in order to get products and services from brands that they actually respect, they feel like it's doing good in the world. And I'm also seeing that purchase behavior is starting to become something like virtue signaling, where if I'm buying from this sustainable brand, I'm proud of it as a woman and I want to let other people know.
What channels would you characterize are the most used channels for relaying that message, the brand messaging?
Surprisingly so, a lot of people think it is your traditional social medias, like your Instagrams or things like that. However, what I'm seeing is that your Reddits, your Discords, your Substacks, the more private kind of platforms are really emerging, especially when we're talking about consumer behavior, collective efforts. Specifically, I've been studying economic boycotts, and a lot of that organization is happening on private discords, in Reddit, online forums, and things like that. Because, an Instagram comment isn't going to be able to give you a step by step guide of where to buy and where not to buy.
Does anonymity have any relevance there? Like
Absolutely, it does.
okay, so people want to talk shit or they want to talk about how much they love it, but they don't want to be necessarily identified with it.
Absolutely. So that's exactly right. They're talking shit, but one of the people, like one of the main kind of people that are wanting to have this anonymity are the employees of these brands. And that is starting to emerge as one of the things that's important to the consumer. They don't want to buy or attend or, you know, get service from a restaurant or bar or something like that that is treating their employees poorly. For example, I'm a regular a lot at a diner here in my neighborhood in Dallas. And when you become closer to the staff, they'll let you in on the trade secrets and things like that. And one of the things that I've experienced is the high turnover makes me as a regular want to leave as well. Like if my favorite people aren't there, then I don't want to go there.
Hmm. You were a server for a while, correct?
Yes, I was. for 3 or 4 years.
That's long enough for a lot of people. um, but so how have you noticed the thing? What kind of things are being reinforced in your consulting career that you learned in serving tables?
Yeah, so I always say that serving tables was the hardest job I've ever had. Even still, with all of the things that I'm doing with corporations, the hardest job is actually being on the floor. And so I think it's so important to start there and then build something from there, because I think that a lot of the decision making is happening top down as opposed to bottom up. And one of the things that I especially learned when serving is upselling. That was my secret sauce was upselling. Yes, I'm getting you your regular beer because I worked at a brew house. I'm getting you your regular beer, but if you're there with people, hey, why not buy the $200 bottle of beer? You're splitting it amongst 5 people. That's only going to be about what, $20 a pop, $40 a pop. I'm breaking it down for them and I'm letting them know, hey, this is a celebration. And then if I'm talking to men, I'm like, like you're Mr. Big Bucks over there. You're Daddy Warbucks, you can afford it, treat your people and things like that. And another thing with women is that compliments will take you very far, and genuinely, I love what you're wearing, but more than that, I love that you've come here a lot and I want to get to know you. It seems that this is a place that you enjoy being. I want to make sure that your experience is done well. It sounds kind of controversial, but men and women do think a lot the way that the media portrays them. Women, we do take a long time to make a decision, and men, they say, my clients say it's kind of caveman, but they're making their decision. It's like, me make decision, that's it. There's not a lot of going back and forth because they're not socialized to question their positions. But women, especially when I was on the floor, one thing that I noticed is that there's always like this kind of underlining competition. And one of the things that I would do is that I acknowledge that, and I am doing everything in my power to make that woman let her guard down. And I see that so much in corporate, especially when it comes to funnels, pipelines, all of those things. Instead of acknowledging that it's going to take a little while for the woman to get to know and love you, they're trying to hurry up the process. And that's where your bully marketing, your manipulative marketing, all of those things come into play. And with that kind of process, if a woman is converting from that kind of process, she's going to feel the ick, and she's never going to probably buy with you again. It's cool if you want to get that one-time sell. However, if you're really wanting her to come back and things like that, you're going to have to invest initially in getting that authenticity and trust and things like that, building that relationship.
Okay, so we're talking about what happens inside the restaurant. Can
Yes.
you help me understand a little bit more about how to communicate outside the restaurant with social media, email marketing, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So I think the best way to communicate is figuring out the medium first. So one of the things that I noticed is that email lists are huge for me. I think that it's just because I'm a really great writer and I feel like I connect with my audience, actually make them open up emails. I have about a 56% open rate, which is a lot higher than
Astonishing.
the national. Yeah, than the
Like
national.
20% is average, and
Yes,
below that, your
exactly.
subject line sucks. Yeah.
Yes, and honestly, the subject lines are great, but it's the stories inside. I'm a storyteller. And so one of the things that I don't see happening a lot is stories. And even in my training, I do a lot based off of stories. Also don't see the vulnerability there. The people are not living what they're teaching. And so especially when I'm dealing with stakeholders, they haven't been on the floor of restaurants. They haven't probably, had those customer facing roles. And so they're more concerned with making sure that the stakeholders are satisfied. But when we're communicating with women, whether it's social media or something like that, I always find that the best communication is when I'm asking her to do something. It's like an exchange almost. Even if I'm doing an email list, reply back to my email. And not just about a sell, reply back to my email and let me know, did you enjoy the story? Was that something that you enjoyed? Like, do you actually like opening up my emails? I love that. And I've gotten that so much. And I really respect the process of getting women to know, like, trust me. Because when that happens, women are just like, I'll throw my money at you, girl, because I like you, I know you, I trust you. And so when it comes to communication, storytelling, authenticity, vulnerability, living what you speak.
When you're, I'm particularly interested in email marketing just because I've seen when it works, it really works,
Hmm.
and especially with bars and restaurants. And like there's kind of a divide in the philosophy in this. And I'm a fan of really simple subject lines, really simple emails that say, "Here's a thing. Do you want to go? Yes, let me know." And then here's the information, and that's
Hmm.
it from one person to another. Like, how would you characterize the style of your emails to direct people to to do things?
Think that I do a mix of both. So a lot of what I do is like the design of the email. Yes, the content is there, but I do a lot of spacing, a lot of breaking things up. So it's almost like a landing page where it's like, if for the people who want to be short, sweet, and to the point, that's what I'm putting in the first paragraph. But if you want to read more, if you want a story, if you want social proof, things like that, that's also included in the email. So all of my emails kind of read like landing pages, read like sales pages, because I understand with women, there's like a mixed bag, especially when I'm thinking about sending out my general emails and I'm not segmenting. I really, really focus on the email design, the differences of headlines based off of segmentation. But I also think that there's something so important in community building with having a general email list that you send out to every one of your subscribers. But the design needs to be on point. I don't think a lot of people use enough space. I don't think a lot of people section off their emails enough. People want more pictures, they want more videos. One thing that I'm also finding that's pretty cool that I've seen is audio emails. And so people can kind of listen to your email like a podcast. The video is great, but they still have to sit down at their phone and listen, right? Or look. But if you set up your email like a podcast and someone gets to listen to the whole thing, it is so transformational. And I think the best way to do it is to just take the same exact content and present it in different ways for different learning styles. So even if you're segmenting the email based off of if someone's a visual learner, you turn that email into a video. If someone's an auditory learner, you turn that email into an audio. If someone's really into reading, then you make sure that there's storytelling throughout all of that. So within that one email, you're accounting for all of the different idiosyncrasies and learning styles of the people on your list.
Okay, you're talking to a nerd here. How does that get delivered? Is that delivered like do you attach an audio file and
Yes.
do you say listen to
Yes.
this?
Yes. And or even when I talk to my audience, like I would talk in real life. I'm like, listen, if you're not a person that wants to read through all of this, I've got an audio version for you right here. And I just think it's really important to talk to them like they're your friends. And I use a lot of humor, tons of humor. I got a humor personality. And so, and also I'm a military brat. So, I curse like a sailor. It's not too much, but, just enough to sprinkle to let people know it's me writing this. It's not chat. It's not my assistant. It's me writing this and it's me connecting with you, me letting you know about really exciting things because yeah, just like you said, you're a nerd about these things, right? I'm talking to nerds too, and like they want to hear about these things. They want to know it as well. And so I agree. I love it when I get to nerd out in my emails and all of those things. But I think more than anything, the design aspect of it and just accounting for different learning styles is so cool. And then you get to see how people really react to those things. And they
Okay, and we're back.
We're
In case you
back.
in case you missed it, we're here with Champaigne Graves. She's a women's marketing expert. She helps us communicate to the psychology of women. And we were talking about emails before. Champagne was telling us about how she does these like beautiful formatted emails, and my big takeaway from that was how she leaves audio messages inside the emails, which I think is brilliant because that's part of the reason I have a podcast. Is because a voice in your head is quite different than text on a page.
One of the things that you were talking about is that most people have your short, sweet, and to the point kind of email. And I my emails read like a landing page, in that I do have that short, sweet, to the point kind of thing for the people who do want it. However, when I am looking to make sure that I'm accommodating everyone, I will present the emails in different ways. For example, for people that are visual learners, I will give them a video. For people who are kind of reading on the go, I'll give it to them audible style. And so, more than anything, storytelling is something that is very important to my subscribers. And I think that everyone should be using storytelling and using the medium that they feel like gets them the furthest. For example, your podcast. I have seen people who are podcasters who will insert an audio clip into their emails, and so that people can listen from there. Kind of just how you do everything in little bites of content. I really find that to be super helpful for emails.
I am 100% going to start doing that from now on. By the way, thank you.
Good. Good. You should.
It seems like a no brainer. It seems like a really obvious thing to do. All right. So we talked about like how you do direct email to get people out of the play. How would you approach there are major revenue drivers and major decision trees, like well understood decision trees, like reviews. You talked about social proof a little bit. You want to expand about that as far as how that impacts the female psychology?
Yes. So specifically when it comes to women, videos, when it comes to social proof, are everything, because they need to see who that woman is. They need to hear her voice. They need to be able to see her cadence. And so I think if anyone can manage to get a video review over a written review, that is gold. And it is something that not only I see adhering or making women consumers convert more, I also see that in males as well, because yes, I do focus on women. However, I've sold to a man or two. So one thing that I know is that when it comes to that social proof, is it is best when people can see and hear from that person.
That's really interesting. There are a ton of tools available for that, but I mean, for bars and restaurants, from a search discovery standpoint, it's like typically like people are like they're looking on their maps, like what am I supposed to do? Like number one is obviously word of mouth, and you're saying that word of
Mhm.
mouth is generated over a longer period of time for women than it is for men, but
Absolutely.
they're more emphatic with their recommendations if they have fully bought in.
Absolutely. Um,
How does this connect with storytelling, and how does a bar owner start communicating that story more effectively?
One of the things that I especially see work well in hospitality and food and beverage is to highlight the stories of the customers. So get those regulars in front of the camera. I love to hear the story, especially of an original concept restaurant. I love to hear the story of the chef, as well as what their journey was looking like to get to where they're at. The restaurants that I love the most, I have shaken the hand of the chef. There's that community aspect that is happening that's so important. It sounds a little cliche, but the only time in the workplace where I think it is important to be treated like family and have a family atmosphere is in restaurants and bars, because when that happens, especially for women customers, they feel like it's a lifestyle that they're building around it, right? For example, I have my favorite brunch place. We build a lifestyle around it. I'm a part of a country club. We've built a lifestyle around the restaurants and bars inside of the club. And so And not only is it my lifestyle, it's my husband's lifestyle. Whenever I want to go out with friends or go to a lunch or something like that, I'm going to the club, I'm going to the restaurants that I usually go to. And not only have they become my favorite restaurants, they've become my friends' favorite restaurants as well, which is, it's really cool too for me as a consumer, as a person reviewing, because it kind of confirms that yes, this is as great of a concept, this is as great of quality as I think it is, and it's great to have that confirmation.
Okay, how would you characterize the conversation that's happening in a guest's mind and when they're deciding to on a new place? Like this is like setting aside word of mouth. They're like, I'm around, I'm looking for a place to go. What how does that decision process work?
A lot of that is based off of the popularity concept. So, if you see a long line, most people are going to follow what the locals are doing. I think that when we're talking about new concepts, if it can be tied to a familiar concept, then I believe that that restaurant or bar will go a lot further, which is why I see concept restaurants that are built upon a more established restaurants do a lot better than, a restaurant that was just built by someone who's new, hasn't necessarily been in the market or anything like that. However, if that person is new, they don't have any kind of roots or anything like that, then that's the opportunity for the owners, the stakeholders to endear themselves to that community. I think it should start with community. Wherever you're building, you need to have a stakehold in that community, whether it's on a political level or it's on a financial level where you're investing, you're going out and shaking hands. I live in a place where every single restaurant is an original concept. And I know the names, the faces. I've met all of the owners of the restaurants, and all of them started off as new concepts. And the way that they were able to stay in business here in our neighborhood is by getting to know the people in the neighborhood. So if you have a community stake, I think any restaurant like that will go far because the community will fight for them. Like, I will go to a restaurant that I'm not necessarily feeling right now just to keep them in business because I want them to stay in my neighborhood and I don't want a chain restaurant coming in.
It sounds like you live in a very special place because like the national average is like 67% failure rate over a year, and then like 80% over a 5-year horizon. It's a ruthless and brutal business for most people unless you're like a chain or you have a very supportive community. Like apparently you do have, which is great. Maybe I should move there. Is that
It's a
Dallas in
great
general,
place.
or is that? I hear it is wonderful.
No,
So
yeah, no, so it's Bishop Arts and it's great. It's great.
okay, well, that's going to be what's the worst that could happen if you just started to just specifically market to women for your business?
Nothing. Because women are the people that are deciding the restaurants to go to, anyways. I am very interested in looking at things like Yelp reviews and things like that. And what I see is that even when I'm looking at Yelp reviews, the people that are willing to include that picture, the people that are willing to talk about the overall experience to truly expand and say something a little bit more than I really like the chicken fried steak is a woman. If someone's going to review the community events that they have, if someone's going to touch on the aspects outside of the price and the quality, it's going to be a woman. And so we haven't necessarily been highlighted or just specifically focused on, but we've always been here leading the charge with consumerism. And so a lot of people have asked me, don't you feel bad that you're cutting off 50% of the market? Don't you feel like you're missing out on something? No, not really. Because women, we are leading the charge with consumerism, especially conscious consumerism. Just like I said, I'll go to a restaurant that I'm not feeling just to keep them in the neighborhood. However, I don't believe that men have that kind of emotional stakehold when it comes to restaurants and bars, specifically original concepts.
Can you do you have any stats on hand that they can use to that you can share to support that?
Yes. Yeah. So when it comes to women in their everyday household purchases, about 78.2% of that is happening from women and women alone. So when it comes to purchasing decisions, women are the primary ones that are making like those little decisions here and there. So when we're thinking about your fast casual restaurants, we're thinking about, just like your regular grab and go things, women are primarily making those decisions. When we think about your more upper crust restaurants and things like that, that's when the opinions of others come into play. And then another thing is that number is only rising. It's projected that by 2028, about 89% of those purchases will be made by the decision making of the woman in the household alone. And then we also think about the intersections of women and their lifestyles now. More women are buying houses, living child free, childless, living unmarried. And so they don't necessarily need even the approval or the validation of a man, because a man may not even be in the household to help her make that decision. And so I feel very strongly that women are who should be focused on, because no offense to men, but I think that people have already got a really great formula when it comes to selling to men. They care about price, they care about convenience. And I love that men are so easy like that when it comes to sales pipelines. But I think I'm of the belief that the whole foundation of marketing, the whole sales pipelines, all of that is happening because of the decision making process of women and how long it takes for something like that to happen. But that's needed because we're making most of the purchasing decisions on an everyday level.
I'm totally convinced. I mean, I look at the reviews of my clients every single day, and I see them coming in, and it's mostly women. I don't have a specific thing about that, but somebody was telling me about. Do you work with CPG as well? CPG and services, or mostly bigger companies, mostly corporations?
Mostly bigger companies, just because they've already established themselves. And so I come in mostly on a secondary level. So these are companies that have already either worked with large primary market research firms, or they have their own kind of consumer affairs department. And these companies are going through some kind of turmoil, PR crisis, something like that. And so specifically right now, I'm very busy, for some reason. But
Well,
but like,
I
yeah,
know what
so
you're talking
they're
about.
and so, like whether it's social, political, economic kind of crisis going on, or in all of those are kind of intersecting right now. I'm helping these companies to figure out what exactly do these women want right now? How do they want you to respond? Sometimes they do want you to be silent. Sometimes they do want you to speak up. Sometimes it's different, but always having that continuous feedback loop is so, so important, especially during times like these, because most of what I've seen happen when it comes to the survival of these companies, it is all happening by word of mouth. I specifically seen it happen within the first 90 days since November of last year, in which there was a huge consumer shift from price and convenience to, value driven. So for example, there was a Walmart to Target to Costco hop, and all of that happened via word of mouth. So the women that were like, I'm done with Walmart, I'm gonna go ahead and make the leap to Target. They've already been doing the things. Everyone signed up for the Target Circle program. Everyone, including myself. And then after everything happened with Target, then people started signing up for the Costco program. And all of those conversations were led by women. Women telling people, hey, Target Circle program's so great because of X, Y, and Z. You get XYZ percentage off. You get XYZ deals. You can get Starbucks delivered with your pickup orders. I had no idea that these things existed, but the evangelists of Target, which were mostly women, were coming out and telling those stories, coming out and letting those things be known. When the shift happened to Costco, again, there were no commercials. I've never seen a Costco commercial in my life, but it was all word of mouth that was happening. It was all the women consumers that were telling the stories. Specifically, I heard the story about the CEO and him going into a board meeting saying he'll kick the ass of anyone who tries to change the price of the $1.50 hot dog special. So that's a great, great story that gets people really invested. And so I thought that that was so interesting that within that 90 days, there was so much movement happening, and it was all word of mouth.
And all word of mouth of women on anonymous or sub internet like Reddits and Discord servers. Very
Correct.
interesting. What with your clients? What are the indicators that you look for, and how do you collect and how do you get them? Like, how do you get the data that informs your advice?
Yeah, so because I come in a secondary fashion, I'm looking at the market research that they have already collected, and I'm also
Is it historic?
looking.
Is it historically reliable for you?
No, no. Well, the thing is that I feel like I have to grab at multiple things in order to get a full picture. So when I am looking at the research, I'm looking at it from my framework. And when I'm traditionally looking at market research, the only thing that they cover is demographics. And it's very like age, gender, maybe race, maybe like education level, income level,
Home
but it's only
ownership.
about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, there's, and even within the survey design, there's not a lot of questions that pull at what is emotionally tying you to this brand, right? There's not a lot of questions that pull out what's your lifestyle around this, because we should be trying to build lifestyles around bars, restaurants, things like that. There were days and times when people were loyal to just a specific brand of hotels, for example, right? And within that, they knew why they were there. They knew why they chose to continuously go with these hotels. However, as time has gone on, the benefits have scaled back, and the consumers, women consumers specifically, they are reacting, and it's not just the convenience being gone, it's not just the prices going up, it's not just the values being thrown out the window, it's a combination of all of that, and that is not being addressed, and it can't really be addressed with the way that research is collected currently.
All right. If you had a couple minutes to sit down with a restaurant owner and they were looking to scale, how would you apply the WCR4 framework to help them get from point A to point B?
Yes. So I would start by doing something like a secret shopping. So not only am I looking for the sales techniques, the great upsellers, things like that, because when I do find those people, they're the people that are going to be moving to the new concept. They're the people that are going to be managing the new concept. I always feel like, or like they're going to be the people helping with scale. I feel like anybody that has been really with the company for a long time has a great handle on how to upsell, great handle on creating their own sales process and techniques. Those need to obviously be the people that are training the new people on the ground. And so from there, I'm also looking at the regulars, right? I'm talking to the regulars and I'm saying, hey, if this new concept is, let's say, 20 plus miles away from the current one, if what do you have anything in that area that you could do? Is there work there? Are there family friends there? Things like that. How would they feel about it? Do they feel like the quality would go down at the current location if they were to scale? All of these things need to be addressed before you scale for scaling's sake. And so, if you have a strong community with the first concept, then that community is actually willing to travel. They're willing to travel to that second concept in order to help get that business going. And if they're not traveling and they know someone in the area, they're willing to tell people about it. I've seen it happen with concepts in my own neighborhood that have opened up two or three others in neighboring neighborhoods that were 20 plus miles away. If I'm traveling to Plano, for example, for the people who are Texas oriented, they know, and I'm here in Dallas, that's about 20, 35 miles. I'm stopping at my favorite restaurant that has a chain over there because I already know the quality that they're producing. So again, it goes right back to that community. It goes right back to those people becoming evangelists for you, because that word of mouth will precede you way more than any marketing campaign, any sales pipeline, any kind of Marcom system ever will.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Is there anything you want to leave us with? How do we find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on my website, Shampaigne Graves, or LinkedIn. That is my main jam. And I love, love, love talking about this stuff. I'm such a nerd. And more specifically, my inbox is always open. And so please hop on LinkedIn, message me there, connect with me. Let's talk and let's see what we can build together.
All right. Thank you so much, Champagne, for these like very clear, actionable steps to improve your communication with women. This has been the Hospitality Strategy Lab. If you haven't yet tried, got your free accelerator. It's a 14-day free trial of my software. I'd love to see you there as well. Champagne Graves, thank you so much for coming on the Hospitality Strategy Lab, and I will see you soon.
Thank you, Jason.
And that's it.